What's up YouTube, Medium, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you might be seeing this video or reading this blog. I'd like to talk today about my concept and my idea of the revival revolution of agriculture. Let's get into it. Formal disclaimer, this video is very opinionated. I am not an expert in history, agriculture, or business. All the things I talk about in this video and this article are up for debate. So if you want to debate, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Leave me some criticism and also what you think about this topic. So what I mean by the revival revolution of agriculture is in the next coming decades, I think we see tremendous growth in the agricultural industry and industries around it. And the reason I believe this is because when I look at industry, I take the prime example of a pendulum. So a pendulum swings back and forth, and on the back end of that pendulum, that particular industry, say we're using agriculture as the example, that particular industry on the back end of the pendulum is not doing so hot. So I would say 7 to 10 years ago, this is where agriculture was. It was not doing so hot. It was on the backswing of the pendulum. So it swung like this, and 7 to 10 years ago, if you were to take a picture, the pendulum would be here. It would be almost at a 180 degree line with the pendulum. So it's on it was on its very back. So a lot of people, and I explained this in my article, how I talk about at that point about 7 to 10 years ago from this date of 2017, agriculture from my point of view was very traditional, right? You didn't have a lot of the organic farms coming out yet, and I'll discuss that in the next part. But what was happening was you had a lot of small farmers getting pinched by the big, large corporations, and they were complaining about how there's no money to be made in farming and agriculture because land prices are so expensive and lack of capital is a big issue. And you had this problem where if a small farmer wanted to start, it was very hard to even start because it was such a monocrop environment. Everyone was growing the same crops, corn, soy, wheat, whatever the case may be. It was very monocropped and there wasn't much diversity to it. And really what was happening is they were farming the soil. They weren't putting nutrients back into the soil, they were just farming the soil. And it deteriorated our landscape and our environment. And the way I look at it is, this was the point where agriculture was at its worst. People were not getting into it. The median age of agriculture from 30 years ago, I think I read, so 30 years ago from this date, it was, the median age of a farmer was 50.3 years of age. Today, 30 years later, the median age of a farmer is 58.3. And why is that significant? The significance is that means not a lot of young people are getting into farming. The population is aging up, and that right there, that one singular fact gives me goosebumps, because I know that when you see that fact, that means that there's huge opportunity there for young people who want to get in the space. It's hard to get land and build capital, but it's becoming more and more easy. It's becoming more and more doable. So, and we can see that if we relate that today, rather than going 10 to 7 years back where the pendulum was like this, now the pendulum's sort of like this. It's sort of swinging forward a little bit. It's gaining some momentum before it gets to that halfway point and breaks, where I think is where you'll see the tremendous growth is over here. Here's the halfway point. It's coming back in. It's coming back in towards that halfway point where it's a decent industry. You can make a little bit of money. There's a lot of innovation prospering in that field. And this is how I relate these things to these industries, is this pendulum. I think it's a perfect example of how the fad, there was a lot of problems with the industry. It was seen as a dead industry. Not a lot of people were into it. The median age was very, very high, and still is very, very high. But now if we relate it to now, instead of 10 to 7 years ago, if we relate it to now, you see small and medium-sized operations succeeding. And the reason you see that is because they're in urban environments, they're using permaculture principles, they're doing organic farming, which is huge and publicized in tons of different forms of medium, such as television and just different stuff. It was huge, especially like 2 to 3 years ago. It was a huge thing. Non-GMOs has become a big thing. A lot more people are interested in where their food's coming from and how it's being produced, what products are being given to the animals that they're eating, what pesticides and sprays are being sprayed on there. Regardless of if they're for or against organic, they're becoming more aware of it. And this awareness allows people to become interested in it, and it just grows the industry as a whole. So the way I see it is people are now starting to understand and try and find out where and how their food is produced. There's a lot more interest than there was 7 to 10 years ago. You see those small to medium innovative farms. You got the aquaponics, you got the vertical farming. There's different innovations rather than the traditional harmful farming of the soil. You have innovative farming practices that not only help the environment but overall produce better food and overall are more profitable and are capable on a small to medium scale, and it allows for people to build a living from that. And that's what I think the whole premise of this video is. I think I'm personally gonna place myself in this industry because I'm passionate about it, and I just love business, and I've always loved nature, and I have a really like, it's almost like a genetic thing with raw resources that I love, just raw resources and wood and just different stuff like that. I'm a little weird on that, but I really do think if you stick your stake, I said this in my blog post, if you stick your stake in an industry rather than chasing the trends like everyone tries to do. They try to chase the trend of house flipping or whatever the industry is at the time. There's tons of variations and stuff like this, but the big thing is the people that chase the trends, they aren't ever getting the most upside because they're too late. The pendulum is already here. If I stake my stake now, I'm here, right? And I'm gonna swing with this pendulum into this, and I'm gonna have all the upside of this potential spot. Whereas right now, people that are hopping on a trend, they're stopping, they're joining the pendulum here, and they're swinging backwards. It's becoming less popular, and there's variations. The speed at which the pendulum swings is different for different industries. It's up for debate. But I really do think it's a great comparison to the way the world is. There's a lot of people that are chasing trends instead of just staking their claim in something they're passionate about, they want to learn about, they're curious about, and just going from there and building a business around there. If you want to build a business and a successful business, why would you not stake your stake and get all that upside of that frontal pendulum swing? I just believe in this theory, and I'm personally going to be taking action towards this theory. I also believe that if you produce content and you have a lot of great content and you post YouTube videos and Instagram posts, and you have tons and tons of clout within your industry or influence within your industry, you have the most upside. Even if you build a business that's successful, you're going to have upside within that space beforehand. But if you have the clout in the industry, you're going to be the ones that are going to be on those TV shows. You're going to be the ones that are talked about and are seen as the experts, even if you might not be compared to someone else, because you are putting yourself out there. You're making videos, you're posting on Instagram, you're becoming aware, you're just engulfed and involved in all the practices rather than just focused on your business, and I think it has tremendous upside. So that's the main reason I wanted to talk about this concept. Is I want you to just look at the picture differently. Just go from a different perspective and look at it this way. I think this is going to help open some people's eyes about industries and where they want to take their lives. And I think it's a really, really cool concept. To go along with that, I wanted to explain this to hopefully put a little bit more into the situation. So I was thinking the other day about some good examples of history repeating itself, because really this is what it is. It's history repeating itself on this pendulum swing, and when history repeats itself, it becomes more popular, and it just it's almost like we get bored of one thing, so we move on to another thing, and it just keeps going and going. So it has a lot of involvement, I believe, with history, and maybe someone can make a video explaining in more detail what they think about this topic, because I don't have all the pieces. This is just an idea that I had that I wanted to make a video about and explain, but the way I see it is it has a very, very strong tie to history, and I was thinking of examples that I could use, and I thought of this example. So let me see if I remember the fact without looking, or the notes without looking on my Medium post. I believe it was 80 AD that the first Colosseum was built. The Colosseum, the classic one in Italy, I believe, Rome. And the whole purpose of these Colosseums was to have 50 to 80,000 spectators witness entertaining live events of animal hunts, executions, famous battles, just different entertainment things. And it ended up being just that, and it exploded in popularity, and they built more of them. And now, if we fast forward to today, we have something very similar. Football and soccer stadiums, very, very similar to Colosseums back when. Almost the same concept. You have a lot of visitors, you have a lot of spectators there for a central event of entertainment or information, mostly entertainment, and they're there in a centralized location. The same architecture of it is basically you have a stadium and a Coliseum. They're very, very similar, if not almost the same. I'm sure I'm gonna get some flack for saying that, but they're very, very similar in a sense that all the spectators are engaging in whatever the event is, a sporting event, a famous battle. They're very comparable. So that was my example of thinking about how history from the past can be seen in our today's societies. And I think that has a really strong tie to this industry concept of this pendulum. I'm just not really too sure on how. And I'm not the best at explaining all the details when it comes to that, so maybe someone can maybe leave a comment down below on what they think about that. I'm going to leave it with this. The people that stake their stake in the ground and understand that eventually the world is going to come to them, and instead of chasing the trend and chasing what the world has at the time, and just stake a stake in the ground, build a business that you're passionate about, that you enjoy, eventually you're going to be on the side of that upside. And if you plan it right and you do it right and you have the right timing, you are going to have that upside, and it's going to propel you into the life you want to live. I think that's where that luck comes in with a lot of successful people, is they time it right with that industry pendulum swing. I think that is where luck comes in a little bit. It's not more or less not luck, but it's more or less timing. I think the timing of it is very important. And I really just think this concept can help you in any decision you make involving what you want to do with your life. I appreciate you guys for watching this video, and I'm going to do my best to try and make a formal diagram of this pendulum swing. If you want to look at that, I'll put that on my blog post and on my Medium post, and see if that helps. Because it's hard to do it with my hands waving around like crazy. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to be making another video probably in the next 2 days of some of my farm projects and my farm goals. Currently, I live in a townhouse, so I don't currently live on a farm. It's a long story, but I currently live in a townhouse, and I really don't have too much experience with gardening or farming. I have a lot of business experience for my age, I would say, and I'm just really passionate about resources. So I'm going to be making a video explaining some of my goals and my plans and visions within the project that I call my farm project, and I'll also link a page down below once it's finished in the description of my page on my website that includes all the goals and pictures and good diagrams of how I plan on going about that. So if you guys did enjoy this video, go ahead and leave a like, and if you're interested in gardening, homesteading, permaculture, and business, feel free to subscribe. That's what we're going to be talking about in the next couple videos, and pretty much that's what this channel is about. So if you're interested, go ahead and subscribe. I appreciate you guys for watching this video. Again, if you have any criticism for me, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.